Let's come to the next panel, effects or effects. The first option we have is dehaze, and this is what dehaze is doing to the image, and it's giving a nice grip, but I'll show you a better example than this of dehaze. Before that, let's go to grain. Now, as per the official web page of Adobe, it is said that the adding grain to the picture gives an effect of a film photography, and it may be true, but I'm a little confused because I can add grains in many ways, and keeping one extra panel for this grain is a little beyond my understanding. Maybe I'm not thinking in the right way, but yes, if you add grain, it creates an effect of film photography. Those who have worked in the film era possibly understand this. And there are several other options related to grain, like size and roughness is given, so you can check that. Also, the grain adds kind of a texture to the flat image, which looks nice. Remember one thing, grain is not noise. In the world of photography or film, grain and noise are two different things. Grain is considered as a good thing, noise is considered as a mistake or a bad thing for a photograph or a film. And these are a couple of pictures I want to show you the effect of dehaze. If I use dehaze on this picture, you see the background and you see overall picture. It's creating a nice effect. And I would probably use dehaze for this kind of picture, as well as I can use dehaze to repair the foggy picture like this one, or this one. And you can check before and after some details in this darker area or even on this pillar. The next option in the effects we have is post-crop vignetting, and as soon as you start dragging the amount, you'll see that on the right hand side, if you drag the amount, it adds the white vignetting, and on the left hand side it adds the dark vignetting. The midpoint controls the aura, the size of the aura of vignetting, and the roundness controls the curvature of the vignetting. Feather controls the softness of the vignetting, and highlights try to protect highlight as you drag it, but you have the style as highlight priority. If you choose the style as color priority, it will try to protect color. Now we don't have scope here to explain how it does that. And if you choose the paint overlay, your highlight option is not available now. This is called post-crop vignetting, and therefore if you crop the image, you decide to crop the image, the settings we chosen for vignetting still will remain same. So let's crop this image, and you can see that my settings and choices of vignetting settings are still intact, and they don't have any effect on my cropping of the image. So far we have seen that whatever adjustments we apply to image are applied to entire image, and we don't have any option of applying those effects to selected area or certain area in the image. For example, in this image, if I reduce exposure settings, you see this plate was not even visible in this area, but now I can see the details. But at the same time, I lost exposure setting in this area, and this area is getting underexposed, or I'm not happy with this exposure setting in this area. So what if I need to change my exposure setting in this area or this region, and I do not want to touch the exposure setting of this region in an image? To do this, let's reset the exposure. To do this, you can go to the top toolbar and select adjustment brush, or you can hit K on the keyboard to select the adjustment brush tool. With that, I get this brush, and at the bottom of this panel, on the top of this panel, you have the basic adjustment sliders, which we have already seen, and at the bottom of this panel you get few sliders related to this brush. Obviously size is for size of the brush, which you can change with the help of bracket keys on your keyboard, left and right, or open and close bracket keys next to the enter key on the keyboard, as well as feather. Feather is the softness of the brush, and flow is the thickness or the heaviness or lightness of the brush. Density is intensity of the brush. Now let's take this brush adjustment tool and set the exposure to 1.5 or -1.5, and with that I'm painting on the region where I want to apply the exposure setting. And you see this weird green color or the blue color, that's nothing but mask, and this mask is for indication of the region we are selecting to apply the exposure setting. It can disappear if you check on this button, and it can appear if you check it back. It will appear again if you check it on, and you can change the color of that mask depending upon your image in order to see the region you're selecting with the adjustment brush. So let's make it invisible, and you can see that my exposure setting is applied to this region, but the brush, the settings of the brush are not appropriate, and that's why we have the hard edges and the effect is not getting merged properly. So what we can do is select this pin over here, which is nothing but overlay. You can hide that pin, but you can select that pin and also say delete on the keyboard, and your mask or your adjustment brush effect will disappear forever. And now I'll select good amount of feather for my brush, and I'll reduce the flow and the density as well. And now check on the mask so that I can see where I'm painting, and with these settings this time I'm painting in the same area. And to increase the intensity of my painting or my mask, I can, since I've kept the flow to mid-level, if I paint it over and over again, the density will keep on increasing. And now let's make this mask invisible, and now let's check before and after. And this time I have done a pretty good job by selecting good amount of feather, and therefore the effect is getting merged very well. But what happens if I paint over this region, which initially I said I do not want to touch the exposure settings of this region, but I made a mistake and I am painting on this region. So what do I do? So I can go to adjustment brush panel in the top and say select the erase option, and I paint over this area, and I can get rid of the adjustments done on this area. But after some time I realized that I forgot many other adjustments I wanted to do before I selected that region by painting with the adjustment tool. That's not a problem. You can still change everything. Now I can change the exposure once again. I can increase or I can even decrease. Along with that, I can increase or decrease the contrast, or I can increase and decrease the shadows or highlights, and I can do all other things. And I can still change my selected region by using the erase or add option in the panel. So I can increase the clarity, I can use the dehaze, and I can do all other options available in the basic adjustments. And now I'm going to do some adjustment on one of these donuts, and I'm exaggerating here as always just to demonstrate, and my exposure is set on very high this time. And now I feel that I need same sort of adjustment on some other donut. So what I can do is right click on this pin and say duplicate, and take that duplicate to some other donut. And now if I feel that this is not the adjustment I want on this donut, then I can always go back and change my adjustment setting for this particular donut. So I have two adjustments now. One is overexposed done for the center donut, and one is with some other options on this other donut. I can do that to all other places. Also, if I paint, let's keep the exposure to extreme, and if I paint now, I say new here. By pressing new or selecting new option, I'm creating one more adjustment. If I say add, if I select one of these and it automatically goes to add, then my adjustment will get added to this adjustment. So let's say new, and I get this third pin now if I say new. And on this donut I'm doing extreme exposure, and you can see that it is spilling outside of this donut as well. But let's delete this one. You can press delete, you can select this pin and say delete to get rid of this adjustment. But now let's go back to new again, and this time scroll down and select auto mask option here, and with that let's click once and then do the adjustment. And you can see now this time, even though I'm not exactly painting on the donut, but my adjustment is not spilling over outside of this donut. Now it always won't help you and always will not work like a magic wand, but in most of the cases, if you have good contrast between background and subject, or if you have similar option like this, then it will work and help you in painting faster. It will help you. The auto mask will work and help you to some extent.